evening, everyone. I want to personally thank everyone for being here tonight. It's a pleasure. HCCA has been in existence since 1961. Okay, we good? That's the only technical problem we have tonight. We're going to be in good shape. So, I'm Stu Cohn. I'm the president of the Howard County Citizens Association, and we appreciate everyone being here, not only in person but virtual. And I know why most of you all came in person. You all thought we were going to have Lito's Pizza. But I got to tell you, unfortunately, we're not. Those that are virtual, they're smart. They bought their own pizza. They're having it at home. The men's and ladies' rooms for those in person. You in the virtual land, use your own. They're right on the left here. You're right. I want to first of all say that how fortunate we all are when you think of it. Unfortunately, all those who are no longer here because of COVID. If you think we have problems, you don't have any. You have to think about them. And in Howard County, there were, as of Friday, there were 266 no longer can speak, over 700,000 in the United States, and over 4 million in the world. So I think if nothing else, we should have a moment of silence for those people who are no longer here. And thank you. We are grateful, and I mean really grateful, for the 3 guests that we have here tonight. Ms. Bobo, Jung, and Ms. Walsh. As far as we are concerned, speaking for myself and the board, we couldn't have any finer people in Howard County. You all are sensational. Passion that all 3 individuals have shown over the years, absolutely magnificent. And everything that they believe in, they have contributed fully. And again, I thank you very much. Now, before I go any further, there are some of you who might think that you're distinguished. And if you think you are very important, I would like for you to get recognized, and that's including even those out there in the virtual land. If you think you are, throw a chat in, and Howard Johnson, our control monitor, will recognize that. So is there anyone that wants to go first? If you don't want to go first, I know who I think is distinguished other than myself. That was a joke. So do I see any volunteers? Mr. Kilman, I know you're bashful. But I want you to stand up and tell you who they are.
I want to tell you who you are.
Thank you.
Alan Kilman, they're nice to be here.
Yes, sir. Howard County's next executive.
Thomas? I think you should. No, you want to recognize?
Thomas, former councilman.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Okay. I want to, first of all, we are very, very fortunate. We have individuals here over the years. We give out, HCCA gives out a Activist of the Award each year. Now, over the years, we have had some extremely deserving people. Again, this year, we also do. So I would like Ms. Susan Garber, who's on our board to give that award. But before she does, I'd like to recognize our board because without a doubt, our board, our HCCA would not survive without our board. So we have Brian, you want to get up, please? Stand up. Brian England. Rose Monk is on the, I think he's on virtual. Howard Johnson. Later. Markovitz. And Mike Good. Paul Brzezinski, where's Paul? Harry Hagdu, is he online? Harry Hagdu's got a good excuse. He's a father for the second time.
Oh.
Yeah, the first one's a girl. So we're very, very grateful that our board members are who they are. Without them, as I say, we wouldn't exist. The passion that these individuals have is absolutely fantastic. And so Susan, you want to come up here, please?
Microphone's on the screen. Good evening. Can you hear me first, your man? I'm delighted to have the opportunity to give one of two Advocates of the Year awards. Particularly because the person who we're honoring tonight truly embodies selfless citizen activism in the finest tradition of democracy and an open society. I'm a little old to hero worship, but I freely admit I find this person to be my hero. And what I find exciting about honoring this gentleman tonight is that, generally speaking, in Howard County, to be on council or serve on a commission or a committee, the only requirement is that you have to be a citizen of Howard County. But in this case, we're kind of breaking our rules here because we're honoring someone who traveled many, many miles with pretty good regularity to come and help us citizens in Howard County be able to fight a better fight. The person I'm speaking of is Fred Tubman, the professor. Fred has a list of wonderful accomplishments. Interesting things he's done with his life. But I've decided not to go through his bio. Instead, I want to tell you what probably means the most to you folks here. Because you're active in the Citizen Association, we know you care. And often you feel like, oh, Bonnie, we advocate and we protest and we speak out, and rarely do we win. So I couldn't help thinking that here's a man who has helped us have 2 wins in recent times. And for me personally, being from Savage, the win most near and dear to my heart is all of Fred's help in getting us to save 5 acres that would have been developed instead become parkland. And we could not. really want to position there, as he fought so hard. And he, more than any other advocate I have encountered, just knows. He knows the background. He knows the law, which is kind of nice when we're fighting. And he sticks with it. And he has been a tremendous mentor. And I greatly appreciate that. He's taught me the concept of can you remember? Speaking. That's been a great one. Fred is the Patuxent River keeper. Some of you may not be familiar with that term. He serves an entire watershed of people and communities in a number of ways. Direct advocacy to enforce environmental laws, river cleanups, mentoring and advocacy assistance, maintenance of the Patuxent Water Trail website, and great public access waterfront center. So for those of you who like to kayak, or maybe you like to sit around a campfire and drum and learn about Native Americans, you may want to visit it. He also looks for anti-pollution policy work. Basically, this is Mr. All Things Patuxent. And in a county where all too often, when we think river, we think Patuxent, because that's where our county seat is. In point of fact, the Patuxent starts here in this county, and we should take a greater responsibility for it. So if you ever need someone to help investigate water quality complaints, litigate to enforce environmental law, or conduct restoration and enhancement projects, or conduct environmental justice work to create deeper equity for communities facing inequitable public health and toxic burdens, this is your man. And I'm very pleased to present Fred with this certificate and the gift card so he can have a little fun.
Yeah.
And then I'm going to put in a plug. The Howard County Citizen Association has decided to make the donation to the Riverkeeper, and as they say, it's minimal. And I want to urge each of you to possibly consider doing the same. Riverkeeper is a one-of-a-kind organization that serves Maryland's most significant river, but it depends on your citizens' support and input. His voice is a corporate content. So, Fred, thank you so much for all you've done.
This is a river to help us build that tradition. Tonight, I must share with you that our good friend Bernie Fowler is not doing so well. His family wants his privacy, but at 97, this probably doesn't end well. Palliative care in Calvert County. And what Bernie taught me is the power of regular folks fighting their own battles and owning their own victories. On this river, and perhaps on many others, the winds have come not from government promises, but from squeaky wheels. So I congratulate you on being a river that led the charge for the last 40 years on squeaky wheels. There would be no Chesapeake Bay program in this state if people on the Patuxent hadn't fought like hell in order to get it. So I very much believe, all of us here know, in investing in citizen action, because it is unvarnished by conflicts. It will fight until the end of time. Right? It doesn't care who gets a grant, and it's the work that keeps on giving and continues long beyond what people's careers will deliver. These are citizen fights protecting water, and I appreciate your acknowledgement. Thank you so much.
in giving these awards, I just want to tell you that the gift card was for $100, and the contribution that we gave to Texas River Keepers is $250. And I was talking about our board, and Fred was talking about volunteers. Now, there's a quote that I want to read about volunteering. Volunteering is the ultimate exercise in democracy. You periodically vote in elections, but when you volunteer, you vote every day about the kind of community you want to live in. And I think everyone here has contributed in some way, shape, or form, realizing that they want to do what is best for our county. And again, Fred, thank you very much. We have one more award, for the Activist of the Year Award. And this is an award that we all are extremely pleased because this individual really deserves everything and then some. I'm speaking about an individual who probably to the county council is the biggest pain in the neck, bar none. And I could go down lower, but because we have a mixed audience, I won't. And as a result, Mr. Horowitz, you want to stand up, sir? Come down here. You're not. But we are deeply honored because this guy is yeah, you just remind me, I gotta take my pills today. Yes, I have. Yes. So I'm energized, and I'm energized because of you. You are absolutely sensational. You really are. You have done so much work for us. I mean, you can be they call in my language a nudnik. Nudnik means pain in the ass. Now I'll say it. But I got to tell you, the council, you have been recognized on a few occasions during work sessions, during the legislative sessions. They say, Mr. Horowitz said this, Mr. Horowitz said that. But it's pointed out a while ago, couldn't get a third vote. Well, look, sir, that's a good point.
That's another issue,
That's
okay?
a good point. Look, the guy always has something to say. So even if you compliment him, it's not that good. And I'm giving you nothing but compliments, sir. Yeah, so you take your pills, okay? But in any event, you know, Joe, I tell you, I really appreciate it. He's on the phone, calls up numerous people. He's just beyond belief, and he doesn't stop. In fact, I believe he's going to be starring in a new movie. You all know that? You know, the James Bond movie, No Time to Die? He's going to be in the sequel, No Time to Quit. And I got to tell you, Joel, I know you'll never quit. And that's the thing that I truly, as I'm standing here, I think, I admire you. Because you are a fighter, and then some. You believe in what you think is right. You may be wrong, but that's beside the point. So we want to first of all give you this nice certificate to put that on your pillow at night. And also we want to give you a $100 gift card to Best Buy. And that's all I have to say. I point out often that the whole thing is part of his fault.
We're posting on the HCCA about the problem with the county charter. So I really picked up the torch from her. I read her things last summer.
So, I mean, the guy, like I said, he doesn't quit. He's the most tenacious individual I've ever met in my life. So, okay. I'd like to call Paul Brzezinski, give us a little, little speech presentation on his HoCo By Design experience.
Sorry.
Finding.
Okay, I was appointed to the HoCo By Design Public Advisory Committee. And the immediate response, I told Stu about this, boy, you're a glutton for punishment. And, but it's been an interesting journey because every time they have met, Amy Gowan, the DPZ director, would say, now you all know you're just an advisory committee. And, but I think we made a difference in a lot of things that we were looking at. The biggest one, I think, is that the consultants in Northern County wanted to deal with the schools. And the schools are basically for Howard County a competitive advantage and why everybody wants to move. So, you know, we were a county of 62,000 people way back in 1970. We wanted a, if not the poorest county. Now we have over 332,000 people living here, and it was all due to Rouse and the foresight of the folks that were on the council at that point. They said that, you know, we needed to have development here. So there's a lot of misconceptions going on right now. Folks are saying, well, you know, next thing we do is APFO, and APFO should be basically done away with because it's stymied development in the county over the last 10 years. Yet the census, the U.S. Census, is directly contravening that. We are the second county with the largest amount of growth in the Baltimore metropolitan area, 15.6%, and that's after Frederick. Montgomery County is less. So APFO has not put a dent in our development over the last decade. So anyway, I want to do kind of a 30,000 foot level view on this. If you can advance the first slide here. Initially, when this thing started, there was a survey done putting up 4 scenarios. Scenario A was looking at considers how the county might develop if we continue basically our current development. And that's for about 18,800 dwelling units. At least that's what was posited in the scenario. Second one, or scenario B, is a continuation of Plan Howard 2030 with some tweaks to it. And that had 24,000 dwelling units in total. Scenario C looked at growth centers, and this was posited on us having a real good transit system. And that said, well, we could go up to 29,000 units. And then scenario D was responding to RCLCO's market research that said, well, you know, a lot of people really want to move here and we need 37,000 dwelling units. And so, you know, what the outflow from the survey was that most people were interested in something between scenario A and B. Just hold that thought. Okay, moving on to the next slide. This is what's being tentatively proposed by the consultant and the county. We have committed development of around 7,000 units. It's already in the pipeline. It's already in the permitting process. Undeveloped areas, we only have 2% of our county that's undeveloped. And infill development, they're talking about 1,500. Downtown Columbia, which already has an approved plan, about 4,600 units. Regional Gateway, they show 0. However, what we initially saw was 7,000 units. Because they want to do a plan, master plan for that. The different activity centers would come up with about another 7,300 units. That's focused on the village centers and some rural activity centers out in the west. And they're proposing accessory dwelling units. So if you plug in 7,000 for the 0, you get 30,000 units, which is way more than what people really want in this county. And what we were hearing from folks was, we can't even maintain what we got, never mind looking at more. And that should be a priority. So, move on to the next slide. This is the map that's now being proposed. It's in draft. I don't think there's going to be very much difference. But you'll notice that 2/3 of the county is off limits, the west. And these 30,000 units are proposed basically to go into the planned service area that already has water and sewer. So what is the county's plan? Well, more density is the plan. And what is referred to as upzoning. That is, as a matter of right, they're proposing that all single-family lots would have duplexes on them or triplexes if you aggregated them, quadplexes, or whatever. It's density for density's sake, from my standpoint. And a lot of people are not too happy about this. Plus, if you think back, I mean, I go back into the 70s, Rouse did not want a commuter suburban town built. We wanted an actual city. What we are doing is making a suburban city because we won't get the employment, and that's going to negatively impact us over time, at least in my opinion. So move on to the next slide. This is what's left of the potential citizen input. We've been meeting on the PAC for the last year. There has been input from various folks. We have some strategic advisory groups, but it's supposed to be a draft plan, released to the public. They'll probably take some comments on it. We haven't been told when that's going to happen. It next goes to the planning board, and then there's a plan adoption process where it then gets submitted, and their timing is in early January or sometime in January to submit that HoCo By Design to the legislative body. So Liz Walsh and Deb Jung are going to be two of the folks that are going to be looking at it. So that is the where we are right now in the process, what's been done to date. And to say the least, I'm not happy at what I see. And a lot of other people are not happy with what they saw themselves either, at least from the feedback that we get them. So with that, you want me to take any questions or? No? Okay, okay, I'm done.
One thing you can talk a little bit more about the design committee, the makeup, and which groups are pushing which agenda?
It's a good question. We have over 30 people on the Public Advisory Committee. And thanks to the council, they looked at it and they said, well, it looked to me like it looked like it was a bit top heavy with the folks that were on the development side. So there were people added to provide a balance. And I think we made our points in many different ways, but as I said going in, this is an advisory group. And, you know, our comments, whether they're, you know, good or not, to a large extent haven't been taken, at least in my mind, with the one exception of the schools. The consultant was not going to include that. So, thank you. Thanks for your question.
Thank you, Paul. Appreciate it. Paul, for your question. How many people here have been on our website? Good, majority. Our website, trying to be as unbiased as possible, I think is absolutely fantastic. Thank you. It's all due to an individual, not here this evening, but it's Paul Markovitz. Does he sound familiar? Yes. In any event, we owe a lot to him, because anytime we call him up, do something, he's right there doing it. And you can't ask for anything better. And if you go on to our website, under testimonies and documents, you can see quite vividly everything that HCCA, not everything, but a majority of things that we are all about. We testify, we write things, consult, we work with communities, and people call us up asking for help, and we try to help. So Mr. Markovitz, he works a very, you know, if you have to realize, if we paid top dollar for a webmaster, it would be thousands of dollars per year. But Mr. Markovitz is going to be receiving, because of our board, $100 gift certificate to Total Wines. He's got to he gets drunk while he's doing our website. Yes, but it's damn good. So I encourage everybody to go on there and browse as you can. Other thing I'm happy to announce is that not only tonight are we giving $250 to the Tucks and Rivers, but we also are giving $250 to the Howard County Food Bank, which is all good. Just like we gave to Delegate City Flood. These communities, these people deserve it. I'd like now to introduce you to Lisa Markovitz, who is our HCCA Vice President and President of the People's Voice.
For being here, I just have a couple of things to say. I'd like to thank Praveen and Norm for being back there at the TPV table, because he is our most recent board member. So thank you for being here, Praveen. Our other board members are on the Zoom. I'm really excited to tell you that with the on-site guests and our Zoom sign-up folks, we have almost 100 people tonight, which is lovely. Thank you all for attending. And political organization, and HCCA is like we're sister organizations in our civic work, but HCCA doesn't participate in the endorsement of the ethics ballot, so we like to define those things. We all have been on various task forces and done a lot of good work. Thank you, Paul, for your wonderful presentation. HoCo by Design, in case anyone doesn't know, is the county's name for the update of the general plan, which is a set of regulations that guides development in the county that is updated every 10 years, and that's coming up now. It has been a long process, and some input has been given from the county residents to put into these surveys that Paul mentioned. There's going to be a draft plan that was put together with some of the input in mind and various task forces and committees and the consultants. And that's the draft plan's going to be released, like he said, with a little more input. And then it'll go into the whole process of the county implementing it, which will be planning board and council work. And we are going to keep everyone informed as to when those hearings are coming and when you would like to express your support or opposition for anything that's happening. And if you sign up in the back to be an HCCA listserv or member, if you want to pay for a membership, it's $20 a year, 10 for retirees. If you want to sign up the clipboard for the People's Voice, that's a free membership. Give us your email. We don't spam people or inundate people, but we will keep you posted about these things that come up with hearings. And another thing that's going to happen is right after the general plan is implemented, which is likely going to start with legislation issues in January, they'll start to look at what's called comprehensive zoning, which zoning actual changes will happen to implement the guidelines in the general plan. So we've got a big year coming up with regard to land use issues. And, our members are very interested in those types of issues because they affect so many things in our quality of life in the county. And we are going to keep you posted. There are 3 organizations, the People's Voice, HCCA, and the Smarter Growth Alliance of Howard County under Preservation Maryland, which I'm the chair of, that are co-sponsoring a series of webinars that are going to be coming out very soon, where we are talking to a lot of experts in the field of environmental and historic preservation, education, and housing. And we're going to be talking about how the upcoming HoCo by Design plan affects those areas of our county and what you can do to be educated about those effects, and you can make your voice heard. And we will keep everyone posted about when those webinars are coming and the hearings that will be coming on all of this. So again, thank you. And that's what we're all kind of currently working on right now. And I want to also bring your attention real quick to a table in the back. The Maryland Insurance Administration set up a table. There's a lot of great insurance information back there, brochures and things that you can take. We'll be posting the website information for anyone who wants to see that brochures and various helpful tips and insurance information online. In case for the Zoom folks who are here, we will make sure you see that. We are taping tonight, so we will be publicizing this all for people later as well. And TPV, People's Voice, typically also does an Advocate of the Year award, but this year we decided as an alternative to give a donation to the Women's Giving Circle of Howard County. They are a diverse local entity that does a lot of excellent charitable work, so we're going to be doing that. And thank you again to our speakers, and we're going to have to introduce them and talk about their wonderful presentations again. Thank you so much.
Before the speakers introduce themselves, give their presentation, I want to make sure that questions from the virtual, if anybody out there in the virtual land wants to ask a question, please do it in the chat box. Put your name and then ask your question so you get recognized. And if you have a question for a specific individual, make sure you say that, or if it's just for all of them, say that as well. We would appreciate it. So I would like to first of all have Ms. Bobo introduce herself and go from there. Say whatever you like in the next 5 hours. That was a joke. Thank you all.
I have a choice to make here. Either I get permission to take this thing off,
Yes.
or
Take it
I
off.
can't read my notes. So can I do that? Yeah, thank you.
The
for that.
consensus says
Thank
yes.
you for that. Yes.
That's
okay.
democracy.
And I
now.
also decided that I think I'm going to, if it's okay with you, cut my time back a little bit, because I'm not going to be the one with the, current issues going on, and I'll participate in the
We
conversation.
have no issues, do we?
No, out of here, get out of here. You and my husband, I'm telling you. So anyway, I'm really happy to be here. And I've been sitting here looking around the room, and how many of you in the audience have been involved for so many, many years with development issues and quality of life in Howard County. And then there are also newer people, and there are also younger people. That's great too. But some people have put in, decades and decades of very closely watching what's being done, particularly on land use and environmental issues here in Howard County. And I don't have any doubt, we're not perfect, that's for sure. But I think that the citizen participation, I know that the strong citizen participation has had a huge impact on Howard County being what it is today. So moving forward from that, I wanted Fred, when you said hi to me, I said hi, but I didn't know who you were. Fred Tutman was a real teacher to me in my days in office. I knew the importance of the rivers. I knew we had the Great Patuxent and the Patapsco, but I didn't have a very good grasp of the impact that the river has on all other environmental issues around. So I got to learn at the feet of Fred Tutman, and go on some trips with him around the county, and it's really a delight to see you here. Yeah. When I moved Howard County in the 60s, the first issues that I became aware of was Route 100, because it was going through our backyard where it was planned at that particular time, right along Route 29. And my former husband got involved with some people, including your father, Bob Kittleman, Alan, and they weren't against the road per se. There had to be an improved and bigger road to carry the traffic that was going to take place. But they worked very hard on how the road would be placed and designed with minimal, well, maybe it wasn't minimal, but with less negative impact. And that was something that my former husband was actually involved in. And I knew about it only by seeing him go out and doing that. I was spending most of my time on PTAs and things like that. And the second issue I got involved in was with Angie Beltram. I know there are people here who remember Angie Beltram, right? On Ellicott City, another Angie, I know you do. Angie Beltram and I got wind of the fact that after Howard County General Hospital had been built and the land was donated by the Rouse Company for the hospital where it is located now, that the rest of the healthcare community in the state started paying attention to Howard County and looked at how much growth was in the future for us. And 2 other hospitals applied for certificates of need. So we had 3 hospitals applying to build in Howard County at the same time in the late 60s. One of them happened to be the hospital in which I was born, Bon Secours Hospital in Baltimore City, and another was Lutheran. And Angie and I organized the community that, we do not want to have 3 fledgling hospitals. We want to get a full service hospital as soon as we can. And I just have no idea. All of a sudden, I found myself in the middle of this, and I was doing newspaper interviews and speaking in different places and going into the Baltimore Regional Planning Council. And I was sort of like, have you ever had this experience off to the side watching myself do this and thinking, I was a literature major in college. That's where my love was. But I got into it, and I found out that I knew how to have an impact and we won the hospital battle and wound up with one hospital. The library on Frederick Road is now on the site where that hospital would have been. So then I got involved based on that. A man by the name of Lloyd Knowles asked me if I would get involved in the campaign for the very first Columbia residents to be elected to the Howard County Council. And Lloyd Knowles has now been my husband for the last 22 years. And we ran a heck of a campaign. Ginny Thomas, I wish she were here now. She was one of them. The group was Cook, Richard Cook, Knowles, Thomas for Ginny Thomas, Yeager for Tom Yeager, who has died several years ago. And then there was another group with a man by the name of Dick Anderson, which some of you might remember. He worked for the Browse Company, and Ruth Keaton. I bet there are more who remember that name here. And we worked on all kinds of things for the county. We had to build a lot of schools. But listen to this. This is what we had. Rouse donated all the school sites. And he donated the school sites in the most desirable locations for a school to be built. So it was like, being in heaven to have a community that would serve as a garden for growing people. And that might sound a little too flowery, but if you could have heard him say those words and see him, in the work he did, that's really what he aimed for here. And I think to a very large extent, he succeeded. When you look at the way the villages are laid out and all with their village centers and with their, playgrounds and all the things that are needed to have a full life in a community, that was Jim Rouse doing that. And we were very, very fortunate, I think, to have him pick this space. So let's see, what else do I want to touch on? I'm gonna cut out some of this because I want to be sure there is enough time. We did a general plan when after the county council, I went on to run for county executive in 1986. I was the first woman county executive in the state of Maryland. And so I had such, and by good, I mean, they weren't there to get their names in headlines. They certainly weren't working to make money, but they used their skills, and there were varied skills. People moved from all over the country to Columbia, and particularly women who knew they would have a different kind of life here than they would have in the parts of the country that they came from. But I don't know why I'm saying but, and we just made it the best possible community we could. And the school sites were all donated. They were in the center of the community. So Rouse made it very clear when he donated those sites that those school buildings were to be used as community buildings. Community associations, must be able to come in and use the auditoriums. And it just all came together very well. So the general plan that came out in 1990 was the one that we did when I was county executive. I will say that it won awards all over the country. Uri Avon was the planning director at the time, and it was a comprehensive, not just here's a business segment, and here's an education segment, and here's a recreation segment. Everything was tied together so that it all really worked very well. And we also insisted on having a mix of housing costs. We could have built all upper income units here in the county, but chose not to do that. We wanted a mixed community. We didn't want people to have to drive into into Columbia and do the, I don't want the word menial at all, salespeople's jobs of working on cars, et cetera, and then get on public transportation and leave the county at the end of the day. We wanted them all to be able to live here, and to a large extent, we meant that. So I don't want to, I think I'm really going to stop, if you don't mind. If you want me to come back sometime, I will, but I think we need to get on to what's happening here in the county. Let's see if there's anything else that I want to add that's really, no. One of my favorite quotes from Rouse that I'll end with is, what ought to be can be, with the will to make it so. And I think the work that you're doing here in HCCA is really leading to that for the future of our county and for a long time.
No question about it. All you gotta do is Google or Bing, you can see that.
Yeah, I think the name helps. It's kind of memorable.
We're getting some comments from our Zoom folks that they very well, so if everyone can speak up.
Okay,
Thank you.
Could you bring that brass lamp down? Otherwise, cut off my, thank you. There you go.
good.
Yeah, that
Can I go home now?
should be.
We're wonderful, right? The next guest we have, once again, we are extremely, and I mean the word extremely, honored that Miss Deb Jung is with us tonight. And Liz Bobo said, if you want to come back, tomorrow morning? So Deb, would you like to say a few words on it?
First of all, I want to thank you all for inviting me to speak here tonight. I am honored, actually, to be the one asked to address this group. I think back to when I first started meeting members of HCCA. I didn't know you were HCCA, but I'm looking at Angie Boyder because she was one of the first. I'm looking at Lisa Markovitz because she was right there as well. And I started going to the county executive's comprehensive zoning presentations from the consultant whom you had hired. And I thought I need to learn everything I can about comprehensive zoning. Well, I wasn't going to learn it in 6 weeks or 10 weeks or 4 months, but I walked out of my very first presentation by that consultant, and I must have looked maybe a little lost. And Angie and Lisa came right up to me and said, "Oh, I see you have on a name tag that says Deb Jung, council candidate." And that was all it took. They soon became good friends. Every one of these consultant engagements that I went to, they were always there. They were always giving me advice. They were always helping me learn more about the zoning code and things that I might need to know if I got elected. And lo and behold, I did. And I don't know if I need this direction or that direction. That was my introduction to HCCA. And I was incredibly grateful that the two of them were so willing to share their knowledge with me. And not just with me then, but now and always, because this whole group is really, really critical when it comes to public engagement. We count on hearing your voices, because oftentimes, if we're not hearing your voices, we are not hearing any voices. As many of you know, your voices are sometimes the only ones that come before us in a public hearing. And it is critical for other people, not just us, because oftentimes we we'll get your emails and we'll read them first and foremost. But to hear, for the public to hear what you have to say as well. And why is that? We don't have a press anymore. You all know that. Nobody is covering anything in local press. So the only way for people to hear what is going on is for them maybe to turn into a public hearing, for you all to elevate your voices in whatever way you can. Social media, which I know I stay away from, my colleague doesn't, she's braver than I am, but I don't touch it with a 10-foot pole. And it just becomes very difficult to get out accurate information. And that is what HCCA does. And you all should congratulate yourselves for the job that you're doing. And Fred, I mean, as you know, obviously, I'm also a member of the zoning board, and I can say that you are a powerful testifier. That's what I'll say. Okay. I also have that. I live very close to it. I spent many years down there on the surface of it. It shows through in everything that you do. And that's something I deeply appreciate. I think most of you know that my legislative efforts have been primarily focused on trying to ensure that transparency and accountability is something that we should be able to expect in our government, and to ensure that there is legislation in place so that we can get that accountability and that transparency. And I have again counted oftentimes on members of HCCA to give me advice on ways that we could go about doing that. And we've been very fortunate in that we have gotten some legislation passed. We know that we got the zoning, the ZRA bill passed recently that will now put signs anytime there is a zoning regulation amendment that has been filed by an individual in front of the place where that zoning regulation would actually affect. We have, we also are looking to do a bill to strengthen the design advisory panel. And I'm hoping that we'll be doing that very soon. I have a bill in place right now that will take away the exemption to living wage for sole source contracts. And again, these are just some of the things that I think are really needed for accountability in our government. I know that you all know that budget time is a really demanding task for all of us. And again, we count on at least some of you who get involved in the nitty-gritty and let us know this is not how this money should be spent. This is how this money should be spent. Why are we putting more money into this particular area, or not enough money in this other area? And your emails and the meetings that we have with you are critical oftentimes to our understanding. We're supposed to be a part-time council. I know that you all know that's simply not the way that we can operate. I thank you for laughing because it really is amusing. We are maybe a part-time council with full-time preparation for our job every day in order to fully prepare for a public hearing. As chair, I can tell you that that Liz Walsh has to prepare not only for whatever is in front of us, but also for her chair duties at night, having been chair. This is a full-time job. And it's difficult to do this type of job with only 2 staff members. And I know that seems like, wow, you've got 2 staff members? That's a lot. And I'm very fortunate. China Williams is here tonight. China, can you stand up? Without good staff, you wouldn't be able to do this. And I saw Kevin Baker. No, really, okay. And Liz's staff member Kevin Baker was here for a while too, and he's great. So we're very lucky to have good staff, and that helps us do our job. But you all help us do our job too. You really, truly do, by giving us very specific advice and amendments to our bills. I'm looking at you, Susan Garber, okay? I mean, she's told us more than once exactly how to amend a bill. And I've learned over the last 3 years that when one of you all come to testify in front of us, I can say, well, how would you amend that bill? And then take good notes and hopefully be able to make the kinds of amendments that we need. I know that you know that there are still issues with accountability and how hard it is to approach those issues and to make sure that we can actually do something about them. And one of the biggest that comes to my mind is the new cultural center, because we spent months and months asking for information, for pro formas, for business plans, for bylaws, etc. And even after repeated requests, we still never got everything we needed in order to really do what I thought we needed, or for me to really have what I thought I needed to really fulfill my fiduciary responsibility to the county taxpayers. When you're spending $68 million on a sole source contract, I think you need as much information as a bank would expect if they're going to give a loan to a company that's going to be spending that they is asking to borrow $68 million, and I never felt like we actually got that. So that was a disappointment that went through without getting the information that I felt that we needed. I know that you all know that we've also been working on various items in the zoning process. We were successful, which is unbelievable because so often it's a 2 to 3 vote, as I'm sure most of you realize. And we were able to rid the county of the developer rights and responsibilities agreement. So nobody will be able to enter into one of those agreements again. And I'm sure that you all, at least some of you probably followed the Delegate, the Delegate DRA, which will be the last DRA that will actually be able to come back again, I guess. And I suppose they could ask for yet another 10 years after they finish this past 10 years, but Liz and I won't be around when that happens. And we had quite a voting session on Delegate, because Delegate was in its own way very indicative of some of the things that have happened in the past, and that Liz and I have been fighting to keep from happening again in the future. This was a situation where the landowners were paid $20 million to put their land in agricultural preserve, and then an extra $2 million to keep up their manor house, and then were given a developer rights and responsibilities agreement that allowed them to put in 400 single-family homes around that, 400 single-family homes and another piece of property that they owned. And when they came before, and that also meant they were exempt from having to actually from some of the zoning regulations as well. And when they came before us to renew that agreement, they refused to tell us how they had spent the $2 million the county had given them to keep up their manor house. And they refused to even contemplate that it would be a good idea to add some more affordable housing in this particular development that they were building. So here is this huge new development that didn't have to put any moderate income housing in. They were completely exempt from that requirement. And they were getting a special deal. They were getting a developer's rights and responsibilities agreement, which basically gave them all the rights and no responsibilities. So Liz and I voted against that. We were also very disappointed in some of the other things that we tried to get through. We know that we, at the very beginning, tried to get through a bill that would allow the public to cross-examine DPC when they're in front of the planning board. And we were not successful, but again, Liz and I voted in favor of that. I keep looking at Liz, I keep thinking, no, not you, Liz, but that Liz, yes. So these are some of the disappointments, but I feel like even though there were these disappointments, I feel like we have made some real strides. People are looking more to the kind, wanting to have the kind of government that we would like to see. They would like a more open government. They would like a more transparent government. They would like to hear the citizen voice more. And it's important for us to represent that citizen voice. I think when I was elected, I felt like I was elected to represent the residents of Howard first and foremost. And that's what I've tried to do in these last 3 years, is make sure that your voice is being heard and make sure that nobody is able to hide things from the public. It's not an easy task. At times you feel a little beaten down, but it's an important task and one that I am willing and able and hopeful that I will be able to continue to pursue for another 4 years beyond this year that we have coming. So again, I want to thank HCCA for all the assistance and support that you all have given me over the past 3 years. There is no way I could have done this without you all. And so much appreciation.
I'll say that everything that you said, I agree 1,000%. I am so glad that you are my county council person representative. Right.
That's right.
And Ms. Walsh didn't know it, but I'm moving to her district. Yes, now you're not going to run, Brad, right? We hope that you are. So you're next to the list.
I'm Laugh. It's hard to follow these two ladies, and I'm very honored to be on this panel with them. And make one of a very rare in-person appearance. Right, this is the first time I've seen so many of you so long. So this was quite lovely. Thank you for that opportunity to connect with people that I haven't seen in person for so long. I do want to say greetings, fellow squeaky wheels. That's how I ended up in this position. Was being a squeaky wheel, and I didn't realize, admittedly, when I started off on my own squeaky wheel endeavor, that there was an organization like Part-Time. So I was kind of scrapping it out by myself up at the top of the hill of Main Street in Old Delegate City. Opposite to Deb, land use is exactly how I ran here. It was inescapable for me as a mom of relatively young kids living up the hill from Main Street. Looking at plans, looking at new developments keep coming in, seeing no common sense whatsoever, and asking those questions over and over again, showing up at hearings and being like, what are you doing here? Calling DPC and asking, why are you granting these waivers? What are you guys thinking? Always. It became a hobby. You know, I used to have like cool shoes or, go on vacations. No, then I started just watching those council hearings and asking, what is wrong with them? This is what I did at night instead of sleeping. And so, I think most of you know, I came from a big law firm. Joel was making fun of me for my big law firm. And all the fancy brainiacs who were the Supreme Court clerks were all in this hallway with me at the end of my career in big law. when I was running, because I think also most people know, no one thought I was going to win a primary against an incumbent, a pretty popular, well-liked incumbent. And, I don't think I thought I was either, but it was the only way that I saw for people to hear me squeaking, right? It was the only way. I could show up at every forum, I could meet all y'all, and I could say, why do we keep doing this? What do we think is going to happen here? We know what's going to happen. It did happen. But so they would catch, they would know, oh, hey, Liz, what are you doing? What's going on? I went to this forum and here, what do you think about this picture? Or, oh, you're brushing my picture. But they would always say, like, what are you doing? Why are you doing local politics? It's so weird, You're a fancy DC law firm. You can see the Capitol from our offices. Why local government? It's land use. For me, it's land use. That's the only way that I can have any effect. I'd like to have a lot more than I do, right, Deb? But it's the only way I can have any effect on what happens in my neighborhood, in my community, in my town, in my county, and my kids' county, right? Because that's, if you had to boil down what I care most about and why I don't sleep at night anymore, it's kids and trees. We're going to put that on campaign, so kids and that's it. If you fix those two things, I go away and I start buying shoes again. But until you do, I'm gonna be here squeaking. And so I am so grateful, just like Deb, to know that there's a community of subject matter experts, of really engaged people, of decades-long commitment to their own neighborhoods, to their own communities, to this county of ours, and that you do speak up, because you do have credibility. We do listen to you. We expect you. I mean, there was just a matter of this maybe 2 months ago, where admittedly I was not paying as close attention to some bill about the other side of the planned service area. And you guys came in and said, we don't like it. We have some concerns about this. But it turned out then Howard County Citizens Association met with the proponents of this bill to do, I don't know what they were doing on District 5. But so the testimony came in that, and Stu sent in the letter. The Citizens Association is happy with the changes. We understand what the issues are. We have no quarrel with this bill anymore. And that was it for me. Then I said, oh, that's great. Now I don't have to spend a lot of time figuring out what all these words mean.
We can vote yes.
But yeah, and I think I still made someone say it on the record. I think I put Mr. Young on the spot and said, is this really what this email says? And do they mean it? And is that really the case? And his answer was yes. So my vote was yes, because you guys have that credibility baked in. And we are listening to that speaking, and it does matter. Happily, my Kevin was here. Wendy Royalty both joined my office during COVID, which none of us counted on. And they did me the favor of actually pulling all of the bills that we worked on since we were in office, because we're coming up on almost 3 years now, or like a month and a half short. And so if you look at my bills, there are kids and trees. I would not have known what adequate public facilities ordinance was 2 years before I started paying attention to this, but I do know now, and we filed several bills that tried to get adequate public facility ordinance to actually do what it's supposed to do, which is bring growth along with schools, not leave schools way, way behind. So we tried to extend the waiting period to be more consistent with how long it was taking us to build schools, and we can't even keep up with that. But we also tried to get adequate public facilities tests in communities that just had been excused from it, like Trafalgar. Just doesn't just build houses and put the kids in the school. Trailers be damned. On the tree side, I would say that probably one of the biggest bills I worked on was CB 38, the South Lower North Branch bill that I filed. Maybe July of our first year. And that for me was everything. It was like the long list that I had been keeping for my 3 preparatory years of being a squeaky wheel. It was everything I thought that we needed to be doing differently in the watershed. Everything from keeping out of floodplains to preserving more trees to staying out of stream beds. It was all of it. Folding redevelopment into all these requirements, because a lot of times we just excuse them. So too bad. That was a huge bill for me. It pretty much rolled everything up in one. And unfortunately, we're at about the 2-year anniversary of its complete failure. We went 3 months on that bill. We tabled it. We had work session after work session. I filed, I think, maybe 8 or 9 amendments to my bill to address each and every single one of the complaints that people came up with, and they came up with a lot. And when I say people, you know what people I mean. I don't mean you, because we got a gazillion emails from constituents. A lot of people who hadn't ever written in, didn't really know what civic engagement was like. We would hold training sessions to be like, just write CB 38 and why it's important to you and your family. Tell me what you want to see different or changed or stay the same in this watershed. But that's how you do it. But all those people wrote in, that didn't do anything. The industry writes in and says we don't like it for X, Y, and Z. We amended that bill down, filed 8 amendments. And leading up to the vote, the final vote, we vote on the amendments first, and then you vote on the final bill as amended. I don't know if you remember that, but we went through all the amendments. And all my amendments passed, right? So it made it a little less strong. Instead of this much, we're going to do this much. We did that 8 or 9 times. And at the end of it, then the vote comes up, and then all the no's come off. And that was honestly devastating. Because we thought we had done everything right. We had lined up the advocates beforehand, both at the local level and even up to the national level with Chesapeake Bay Foundation on our side. We had clinics at the library to tell people like how to get engaged, how to send in a note to your council, like who to call, what to do. We met anybody who wanted to talk to us, and then we amended it down, and it still failed. And we just posted on our social media because, like Dan said, it's pretty much the only way you can communicate with anyone right now. We put the video up of my remarks from after that vote, and I hadn't thought about it in 2 years because how would I get out of my bed in the morning? But and it was hard to watch because I said what I thought, and it was true, and it's true now, and it is that. As ideal and naive or optimistic or whatever crazy word never applies to me that people say I am, I had no appreciation for the opposition that 4 Democrats, who I think would all call themselves environmentalists, and a county executive who also I think would call himself an environmentalist. The opposition that I find in what should be a friendly field, and it was overwhelming. But you could not be overcome. If I was sitting there on that dais, I thought, I'm never going to have this kind of advocacy and support of this kind of bill, this kind of, community changing bill, that we were going to be a model, I thought, for what could be done elsewhere in the county. But we're just going to take this little 4 square mile place that had come through so much and make a change. And I couldn't overcome it. MBIA wrote in, the Greater Baltimore Committee wrote in. Why does the Greater Baltimore Committee care about what I'm trying to do in Old Ellicott City? But it just became very obvious to me that buttons get pushed and votes go ways that they shouldn't go. That if you listen to what people say, you would never expect those votes to go that way. And to learn that lesson in mere months from being sworn in was a really hard lesson. And honestly, Stu, I said it. It was a really hard lesson, and even watching it now, I don't want to watch it again. But it was true then, it was true now, and I haven't figured out a way to make it different other than get squeakier. I don't know. So I'm the upbeat portion of tonight's program. But I don't, that's straight talk, that's language, that's what I do. I'm not going away right now, right? We got another year left. Hopefully, everyone here is vaccinated, thank you. Hopefully we emerge from COVID and can turn most of our attention to something other than keeping our families safe and healthy. And we'll go right back at it, right? I think we have 3 tree bills on the docket right now. 4, there's 4. 2 are mine. One is the administration's, and I filed another one. about Turf Valley. Turf Valley also does not have to apply, it doesn't have to comply with forest conservation. So there's four tree bills. Four tree bills on the market right now. So we definitely have kind of switched gears in D1. We're going back to, you know, hopefully not 100% COVID agenda, and we're gonna get back to work. So, thank you.
You're gonna be the lead actor. Yes, and I gotta tell you, all three of you deserve one word. That one word is respect. And respect goes a long way. And no matter what two council people do, all know that we are your friends. And the words that you gave us tonight, including Ms. Bobo, is extremely appreciative, especially when you use the word credibility. That's what we try our best to instill in this organization and the community. So thank you very much. I want to take questions from the audience, and I'd like for on the virtual land, ask the questions, as I said, via chat, and Howard Johnson will read the, do you want to read the questions, or anyone want to
I'll try to read them.
help?
If you can hear me, that'll work.
Okay, so do we have any in that right now?
Nope.
Okay. So I'm going to call on Mr. Knowles, Mr. Lloyd, to ask the first question.
Thank you. Yes, I think it would be a very, excuse me. I think it would be a very good idea for the council to have some active role other than just a presentation, but take some active role in the development of this plan before it gets to the planning board. Because there may be some major things there that you disagree with. And if it goes to the planning board and they say stamp yes, it's a lot more difficult to change your mind as a county afterwards.
Lloyd, what would you suggest specifically? Are you suggesting that we somehow actually meet with the planning board? Or no, you're saying before it goes to the planning board, we should.
Yes. When
So
when
are
the
you saying
final,
county council in general, I mean, we have met with the director of DPC and the consultancy team, but really, if they, I would say, probably interact with us much like they interact with the public, as in, here's our presentation, and we hope you like it, because even if you don't, it doesn't mean that we're going to change anything that we are going to present to the public. So I'm not quite sure beyond the meetings. Did I characterize that fairly? Okay. Beyond the meetings that we've already had with DPC, I don't really, what would you suggest?
I think that there should be some formal representation, some presentation to you, to the county council in some formalized way, such that you get the ability to comment on the various factors in the plan for at least consideration.
In a public way, because
In a public way,
I
yes.
certainly did. I trust me. I commented on all the aspects of the plan.
Yes,
They-
but if
was
it
in
were
a
done
private
by,
meeting, yes.
if it were done by the council itself, or obviously you wouldn't ask necessarily for votes, but in a public setting,
Presented to us
that-
before they take it to the
that's
planning board.
right
Monthly
at-
meeting, Chair Walsh.
right at the end of the, or just before the plan goes to the planning board.
Mhm.
And it would give the public sort of a sense of what you are
What we're
feeling
gonna
about.
see in January maybe, or.
Yeah.
I don't know when the plan is, to get to the planning board.
Between now and January.
Thank you.
Thanks. So Russ, you have one? And then-
Little different aspect about land use, current land use. I was on the Columbia Association Board for 4 years. People started coming to me asking for help in quieting Meriwether. One of these persons lived up Vantage Point Road, about a mile from Meriwether. I visited her. I stood in her basement and I could hear I could feel the vibration from Meriwether. Another lady lived north of Wild Lake. My wife and I drove in front of her house. I opened the windows. About 30 seconds, my wife said, "We got to get out of here." She started to feel her heart trying to sync up to that loud beat. I'll pick a couple people in your district. Dick Bolton. He's mentioned he had to close his windows when Meriwether was planning to get to sleep. He lives 2.8 miles, straight line distance from Meriwether. You must know the Boyders. They lived here before Meriwether. They live over 4 miles, straight line distance, and they listen to Meriwether. So back in 2013 timeframe, with all these complaints, the current county executive, rather than protecting his people the right to enjoy their property, decided to send the state delegation to raise Meriwether limits. Now, what we'd like to have is for those limits to be removed from Meriwether, return them back to the same sound laws that every other facility in Maryland has to observe. I'm asking you, right now we have a meeting. We've been meeting with people, the health department. We have a meeting with Deb Jung tomorrow, a virtual meeting. I'd like to hear what you will do to help the residents enjoy their property.
Meriwether is not in my district, but
Don't look at me.
I've been to meetings that Deb has put on before COVID, where she brought in representatives from Meriwether, and then neighbors. I think probably some of you who were in that meeting are here tonight. Why Meriwether has this hold on local politics predates my knowledge. I don't understand it at all. It's not in my district, but I know 2 of my favorite D1 families was at the Chrysalis event that got drowned out just 2 or 3 weeks ago for a sound check after having, I think, negotiated, the ideal time for the symphony performance over at the Chrysalis not to be disturbed. Even so, they were. I don't understand. I don't understand the lawsuit over Symphony of Lights. In this most recent budget, I tried to have the county stop subsidizing the security that our local police department provides to the tune of $1 million or more every year for this private for-profit entity. I have no understanding of why this singular, frequently bad neighbor entity gets such special treatment. But I don't know what other than political pressure, 1 or 2 of us on the council can apply. I mean, I almost always say on issues like this is it's the county executive. It is. And it's 2 other council members. If you want,
You need 3. You're preaching to the choir. Okay, just keep that in mind, people, if you have questions like this. Okay, yeah.
So I supported Deb's efforts before. I learned about how bad it was, and I think I've seen some of the email traffic about the noise, especially now that operations have resumed since being shut down from COVID. But it's not it's not an issue that I have a solution to right now, particularly given how government didn't get involved with the Symphony of Light. You know, and again, I can't even recoup the police department's overtime costs yet. You know, tell me if you have a particular suggestion in mind, I'm happy to pursue it, but I don't have a good idea on Meriwether. I don't understand the power that it holds over, particularly a majority of our local politicians.
I would have to say, this one. I think that one of the holds that Meriwether has on the local political, the local elected politicals, and I'm sure that you all know this, is money. I'm not, and I think that we always have to face that reality that Meriwether gave a lot of money during the last election to people who were running for office. And I certainly am not going to act as if I didn't also get money from them, because I did. I had no idea what they would want in return. I was pretty naive about that. And I can't say that they have put pressure on me to do anything in particular over these last 3 years. And I think that they know that most of the people who are really unhappy with Meriwether noise live in District 4. And I thought we tried to find a way to resolve some of the issues, but unfortunately not as much as I had hoped. I think that one of the most important things that we can do here in Howard County, period, end of report, is try and take PAC, union, LLC, corporate developer money out of these local political races. I'm looking at you, Alan Kittleman, for doing the Citizens Election Fund. I know that it's a slog, and I know that you know now that it is a slog. And I think it is great that we have a county executive candidate who is willing to take this step. And I know many of you were also at my event just a couple of weeks ago. And I really appreciated that, because it's not an easy thing to do. You can't just go to somebody and say, give me your $6,000, and then give me your $6,000 and give me your $6,000. And it particularly for a county executive candidate where you need lots and lots and lots of $6,000. So again, I really admire you, Mr. Kittleman, for taking on this big responsibility here and trying to change trying to really change the way in which we are having campaigns and who we will be answering to. We answer to the residents and taxpayers of Howard County. And that is, when that's who's supporting your campaigns, I think that really tells the tale of who you are and what you plan on doing when you're in office. And I know my friend Liz hasn't announced yet, but if she ever does, I have a feeling she's going to do this Citizens Election Fund as well. So I think that we know how important that is. And as far as noise goes, I do want to add, not only have I been involved with Meriwether noise, but I've also been involved with the BWI Highway in the Sky noise, which has been, I've been on the BWI roundtable now for all 3 years. And we are making some progress on that. Howard Johnson and Paul Berczynski are also on the BWI roundtable with me. Did I miss anybody else who's on the roundtable with me? No, but we have been working really hard to make that little bit of progress. We'll see whether or not it turns out to be useful to Howard County. And we are also pursuing some legislative efforts which may help Meriwether as well. with noise and how to measure noise. Because that's really a big part of it. You know that, Russ. The way in which, whether you're measuring it by DBLs, DNLs, I've learned more about noise than I ever thought I would in my entire life. And then the other piece of noise that we hear about quite a bit in D4 are the need for sound barriers, because the traffic in Howard County has increased exponentially since we all moved here 15 years ago, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, even 10 years ago. And it's gotten to the point where people have a hard time going to sleep at night or staying asleep at night, not only from the highway in the sky, but the highway out your window. And you're like, it used to be so quiet and nice. And now you can hear 95, you can hear 32, you can hear 29. So those are some of the other noise issues that I feel like I've become the noise queen as a result of all of this, but hey, that's what it is.
So I guess some of the substance of this is that we're tired of making noise about the noise. So Howard, do we have any more?
No.
questions yet?
No question, Chad.
I have one question. So one of the words which is being thrown around a lot these days is affordable housing. Now look around for what exactly does the county council or the county executive mean by affordable housing? How big does the house need to be and what should it cost in today's dollars? I haven't been able to find the answer. So anything you can help me about that would be.
I know the definitions that are in the code, but I think affordable housing, depending on who you talk to, means whatever that campaign donor wants it to mean. Okay, Doug talked about the Reagan Manor. The Reagan Manor in the West Mount community pays no moderate income housing unit fees in lieu and provides 0 affordable housing units. 0. But we hear over and over again, I'm an affordable housing advocate. Affordable housing is very important. Where are you when those issues come up before the council? I did step back from legislating during COVID because it's probable people were not tuned into legislation. There are much more important things going on in the last year. But in May of COVID, 2 months in, I sponsored a rental protection act, right? Because we can't get into eviction directly, perhaps, because that's a state level issue, not a local one. But we tried to legislate as much as we possibly could at the local level. And I'm like, hey, where's the housing advocates? Why am I not hearing from them? I have 30,000 families in this county right now below certain lines, and I'm not hearing advocacy for them. Where are my housing advocates? And so we actually reached out to them and said, hey, you guys, you want to support this? You want to come in and actually testify in support of a bill that I'm sponsoring? And what we got was negotiating down from what we were asking for in a bill. That what?
And that's what we think. The Howard County, look at the website, the definition of affordable housing, they define income housing as 80% of the median income. And that, with that, from that person, there's plenty of homes which are $300,000 in Howard County.
Yeah,
So,
I'm not trying to flip it. I support affordable housing with this builder in a reactive state the county is approving in this location. That's what I see.
so, but what do you mean by affordable housing? Does it need to be $125,000? Does it need to be $400,000? Does it need to be 1,000 square feet or 5,000 square feet? And those are the answers we don't get. We just get like very broad.
No,
Actually, we got a follow up here. Mr. Rashinsky wants to say a few words.
The question that you're asking is what the PAC also asked of the consultants. We did not ever get an answer. What we got was, well, if we do more density here, then, well, you know, the houses should be cheaper in cost and therefore they'll be more affordable.
Yeah, that's a very big answer. And
It is not an answer. And people have tried to do the same thing down in DC, and they said it's a bogus answer. And that's the real, yeah, the buzzword today is affordable housing. It's like mom and apple pie. I'm for affordable housing. Try to get it defined? No way. I mean, it's.
But if we give you more density, you'll get it.
Yeah, yes. And the developers love it.
And that's
Because
why
they
we get
want, they
and we
want,
get luxury apartments and luxury townhouses, luxury whatever.
right, and you know, HCCA has been death on fee in lieu, where the developers can go ahead and buy their way out of affordable housing. And it's done time and time again, and it's there. It's been there for, what, a decade and a half or more? And until that goes away, you're not going to get affordable housing. I mean, Montgomery County, for some reason, can get it, but we can't get it. I mean, people have tried here to do that, and it's been a non-starter. Thank you.
Kathy Hudson, I appreciate what you just said about density. And by the way, Kathy Hudson didn't stand up for a good recognition, should have, because Kathy was our former HCCA president, and you were deeply appreciated.
During COVID, there's been a lot of discussion about mental health and such. And I want to freely admit that I find myself more and more paranoid about the rush of things coming out of Howard County government at the same time that the HoCo By Design is going on. And just this past week, one of your colleagues has been touting the new complete streets plan. And it was just released on Saturday, and they'll be seeking public input 2 days from now on the 14th, and then a week later on the 21st. Well, here's where my confusion and concern comes. Despite the community being informed that APFO updates are not possible until the DPC conducts a committee a year after the general plan, the Complete Streets Manual that's being proposed has an entire section devoted to APFO standards. Based on the information available, really need you guys to look at whether are these simply repeating a listing of criteria for road tests or recommendations to change APFO criteria with stricter standards and development obligations. It's looking like credits are being given for doing what's already expected rather than holding to a higher standard. It appears that those in developers in Columbia may actually, through this, now be allowed to do less. I'm not sure I've got that right, but it's very concerning that no doubt, there's a week and a half turnaround, and it'll be before the council. And I doubt you will have had any more time to look at it than we have. So what do you do in those situations?
I'm looking at China.
It just came out. I'll take a look at it, Susan.
I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
China.
Let me get the kids to bed. I'll be
Remember I said something about having really good staff earlier? Yeah.
It's 24 solid pages of data.
They can't change the APFO regulations. That's not possible. This is just a manual, not a code change. So that's, so rest assured there. Now, as for what they're proposing for implementation, I'm not exactly sure, but I'll take a look at
That's what we wanted to hear. Thank you for asking that question, Susan. And now China's on the hot seat. But to your first point, though, I do have to totally agree with you. And I know that Liz, I can't believe I'm sitting between my two favorite Liz's. This is really, for me, this is a big deal. But to your first point about how many things are coming out at once, I think that that is purposeful. So that, as I said, we only have 2 staff members. It is hard to keep up. It is very hard to keep up. And the more that they throw at us, the less likely it is that we're going to know everything that is in that bill. Unless we have you all to help us, that we're going to know how it could potentially impact something that we may not have had time to think about. We're not going to have time to properly prepare for a work session. We've got too many bills, maybe to even put something on a work session. We have a council member who's generally not available now on Tuesdays and Thursdays, another one who's not available on Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays.
It's only a part-time job.
It makes it very hard to meet. It makes it very hard to plan. But if you want to push things through and you don't want people to look at them closely, that's an advantage. So I too am concerned about how many pieces of legislation we get. Thank goodness Chair Walsh is very good at getting in touch with her couple of colleagues, because you only need 2, to table many of these bills. And sorry, Joel, I know you don't like that word, but to table legislation so that we can take our time. And we've actually become pretty good at that. We've got the solar payment in lieu of taxes, 4 pieces of legislation involving that tabled the last time. The Roslyn Rise development got tabled because of the potential for overcrowding Bryant Woods Elementary School at 136%. What else? We tabled the 3rd thing. What's the trees? Oh, we tabled 4 trees, 4 tree bills. So that's a lot of tabling. And in my own opinion, it is the absolute right thing to do. If you are going to be a thoughtful legislator, you need to actually be thoughtful. And so we need to take our time and understand what is in all these bills and what the machinations are, so that we can do the right thing by the residents of Howard County. At least what we hope is the right thing. Of course, there are going to be people who disagree with that, but any further thoughts?
Yeah, I agree as well, Susan, that it does seem like things are being dropped out there with very little opportunity for meaningful engagement, both by the public and by the receiving council. Deb and I begged many times for that HoCo By Design, the whole thing to be pushed back or extended, or to give people the opportunity to stop teaching their children during the day while they were at home, and cook dinner and maybe get some sleep at night, versus now tune in to some workshop that's going on as though we're not in the middle of a global pandemic. We were denied on that. Complete Streets, believe it or not, we got an email from D3 that said they'd actually delayed implementation of their original timeline to give them more time to get through it. And so I was surprised that it is kind of showing up. I thought there was going to be a 2-month respite. Another example of it is tomorrow as zoning board, we're going to hear a matter about rezoning for properties in Old Ellicott City. That was originally scheduled for September 1 or something.
Yes.
And I was like, I think it was the 2nd day of school back.
Yes.
And I think there was another HoCo By Design thing that night. That there's too much going on to have any reasonable expectation that we as a county are getting the engagement and honoring that engagement, right? Because I have some real reservations about telling people, send in your comments. if I know it doesn't matter what they write, and it doesn't matter how many of you write in. Why am I doing that to you? I'm starting to feel guilty about putting some of you on boards and commissions. Why am I doing that to you? Karina Fisher is serving on the Compensation Review Commission, and when I asked her to do that for me, I said, I'm very sorry. You're going to spend a lot of time talking with a lot of people that you probably will not agree with many of the time. And you will put a lot of work into this because that's what you do. And at the end of it, you will issue a very long report that will go nowhere. Like, what? Why are we doing this to ourselves? But I totally agree that's the case. I don't know how to fix it other than, again, squeaking, but and tabling actually. And so I guess that's the third thing is I have only sadly 1 month left as chair of this esteemed council. And one of my firm commitments before I pass that on to my successor is trying to implement a more humane schedule, a more reasonable schedule for us. I think this month cycle that we have to receive some untold number of bills, right? We don't even know what's going to get filed until pre-file.
64 this month.
Yeah, there was a single, what's it called? No spaces, single space, entire page in the Baltimore Sun advertisement for the docket that we had last month. I brought it as like an exhibit to my interview with the Compensation Review Commission. There is no possible way, even with our wonderful staff and all of their dedication, there is no way that we as a council can know everything, can even anticipate it. Like you have to be familiar with it enough to ask the questions and to get the questions answered and then resolve them if you think they need to be resolved. There's no way that can be done in the 30-day or 4.3 cycle that we have right now. So I'm trying to structure it so that we're doing it on a 2-month cycle. And that gives time for issues to kind of percolate and people to weigh in and say, hey, have you thought about this? And if this is an issue, how could it be resolved in a way that at least three of you guys can vote on? So that's kind of my contribution to the solution is at least giving the council at the very end, admittedly, the very end of all these cycles, right? Just like Lloyd said, we get it at the very end, but at least it gives us one last pause to take a look at it, to put it through maybe 2 work sessions if it's that big a deal, and to really allow our staff to get into it and work on whatever fixes we may decide needs to be made.
Who's coming up next to you?
Dr. Jones,
Joe.
he's the vice chair right now.
Oh, boy.
Okay, comments, Liz, I really appreciated them because, one thing about the amount of legislation in a given period that we citizens testify on, whether it's bills or resolutions, when you have 4 pages on the website that one has to testify, it's not right because we often feel that when we give testimony that we are being placated. And the reason we feel that way is because many a time it seems as though, I'm not blaming you all, it seems as though we're just going through motions. So you don't give sufficient time, not you personally, but collectively. And if something can be done to actually curtail that activity, it would be deeply, deeply appreciated. So, is any on virtual, Howard?
No.
Ladies, thank you for taking my question. As a 20-year resident of Turf Valley, I'd like to start just by thanking a number of the folks in this room who have been with us for many, many years as we fought for sensible development in Turf Valley. From Fred, who was with us with local issues, state legislation that we pushed, Liz and Lloyd involved with that state legislation on Maggie's committee. Alan involved at the very beginning as a councilman before he abandoned us to go to Annapolis.
I want to be with Liz.
Kathy, who was at the forefront with us with a number of pieces of the issues we were facing, and obviously Stu, and many others who go unnamed and aren't here today. I'd like to really ask you about where do you see this county going? And I frame that with a couple of things. It seems that the most divisiveness that I've seen personally in this county, almost rivaling the rancor of national politics, has been related to development, growth, and especially school redistricting. And we really haven't touched on school redistricting today. Obviously, you ladies have been very involved and aware of this. And by the way, thank you very much for the efforts that you've put forth during the past few years you've been on the council. Is there a point at which I'm looking for your general sense of where do you see this county going in terms of growth and the cart before the horse, if you wish, in terms of the required facilities for that growth being in place before the growth is allowed, which APFO was supposed to do, but it's been a failure for the 30 plus years, 30 years or so it's been in existence. Is there, Liz during her term had really pushed slow growth in this county. And there was a lot of pushback on that, to say the least. Where are we? Montgomery, do you see growth extending beyond, as Paul was talking about, right now it being centered in the eastern third of the county? Are we looking at the western part of the county becoming under the guise of regional centers? And obviously the issues related to going back to the rancor of school divisiveness that for the worst reasons helps Howard County become a national news story over redistricting. I was just wondering if, you have the general plan coming up, if you could just talk about your philosophy of where you see it going, how much is enough, how little is too small, where do you want to go and how do you get there?
I think that there's absolutely no way that we should be developing this county without a strategic plan that brings in our schools. We have, for too long now, we have had overcrowded schools and we have not been able to keep up with the renovation and maintenance budgets that we have for the schools that are already in place. The reason why we can't keep up with those budgets is because we're too busy building new schools. The reason why we're too busy building new schools is because we're allowing overdevelopment. And I think that it's time to say we have to look at this realistically, not as a no growth person, or I don't even know if it will be slow growth, but as realistic growth, growth that allows us, the county, to ensure that the infrastructure is in place as we are inviting more and more people to come into Howard County and make their homes here. I want people to make their homes here in Howard County. I did. I mean, you can't say, I made my home in Howard County and now I'm going to put up the fence. That's ridiculous. But I think you can say, we got to slow things down until we can catch our breath. Right now, we have a debt service that is 12% of our operating budget. And that would be, if it was a actual department, it would be our third largest department. And it has grown in the last 3 years. That means we don't have a whole heck of a lot of borrowing capacity, which means that if we are continuing to allow more and more growth, that means that we don't have the money to build those new schools. We don't have the money for that $500 million in maintenance needs for the schools that we have right now. And this gets back to what I think one of the big reasons why Liz and I sort of ended up early on realizing that there, in many ways, we had a voting partnership, because I really strongly believe that first and foremost, we have to be doing what we can for our kids, and doing what we can for our kids does not mean putting them in overcrowded schools. It does not mean putting them in trailers. It does not mean making them reside in schools for 6 hours or 7 hours a day with HVAC systems that are 30 years old. So that is my vision. Is to make sure that that will happen depending on the people that you elect.
Amen. The solution right there. Let too many bugs.
For our campaign donors and what they tell us to do, I don't see how it's going to change. Like, we do not learn from our lessons. What I see in land use across the county, I feel like has already been played out in Delegate City. We will push it to the point of failure. I worry that we're going to do it with our schools. We will push it to the point of failure unless we start thinking about things in a totally different way. When we start becoming more, less passive and reactive, right? This is always my quarrel with the Department of Planning and Zoning is what is the plan? Okay, we want affordable housing, but where are we going to put it? Where does it make sense? And what kind of balance? What is our plan for? I mean, we have an old Delegate City watershed plan, but it doesn't address the courthouse that we're going to talk about tomorrow. What is the plan? The plan should not be sit it by your phone and wait for someone to call and tell you what to do. I firmly believe that the Citizen Election Fund, is intended to do that, to take the money part out. But unless everyone is participating, and unless the participants are winning the election, I'm not sure what even that's going to do. I really think there has to be this insistence by us, the people who live here, the people who are raising kids here, that it has to change, right? There are good ways to do this. It's planning and zoning. Someone in those offices should be planning and zoning. Again, not just answering the call and reading the instruction, because that story doesn't end well. We've lived through that in Delegate City. It ends really badly. And I don't know what more than 2 fatal floods in X years can give you the wake-up call, but I got 5 projects ongoing in Old Delegate City. I don't have hardly any flood works built, but I got 8 acres of land cleared at Longgate Oval. I got Dorsey Ridge coming at the old Wilhides. I have Taylor Village up on College Avenue, Mitchell Green on Old Columbia Pike, Lacey property down the street from me, which is how I got here in the first place. Not 5, it's 6. And towns at Court Hill. It's insane. I don't know what to do. I think it is exactly what you said. It is a reflection of what's happening at the national level. But the problem with the rancor and the name calling is that it takes away from the issues that really matter. And so the next thing gets jammed through the process and gets stamped approved. And it will not change. I don't know. This is the upbeat portion of today's program. I don't know what it is, right? I'm trying to find it. But there has to be this change in mindset. And I see little inklings of it sometimes with Department of Public Works, with planning and zoning, but it's not enough to make the change that I wanted to see, that I thought we would have seen in the 3 years that we've been in office.
Liz, yeah, I'm not in office now, and I'm never going to be in public office again. But let's face, and I have hold it very high value. It's got to be the numbers of people who come out and speak. That is the only possible answer. They are not going to change. They've made it clear the way they're going to do it, and it's not going to change with these particular people in the offices that they're in. It's going to continue the way it is. And so we need to turn out more people. And can we do it? I mean, yeah, we could. We all, went down all our name lists and called people. Really, each of us devoted X hours a week to getting people to, first of all, we have to have a plan and get people to come out and speak and call their council members. And that's the only way it works. gotta be in the volume that we turn people out. Could we do it? Yeah, we could do it. Am I willing to be the one in charge of organizing it? No. And I'm not joking about that. You know, I've spent a lot of my life doing that, and I'm glad I did it. I'm very glad, and I think I was very fortunate that I had the opportunity to do it. But to sit here and wonder, you know what, that's what it's gonna take, numbers of people.
Democrats have run this county for many, many years.
Mhm.
And as a proud Democrat, thank you, as a proud Democrat, for many, all my life, I watch what I see as a division between the progressive and moderate wings of this party. It's hard for, and then I look at you ladies as elected representatives and formally, and at others that I've supported. It's hard to look at the Democratic Party that's run this county and ask, you know, what it is that this singular governing party stands for. And where the, do we need first to have the civil war between the progressives and the moderates? Is there some other way out of this? Because it's pretty hard when the governing party can't seem to get it straight for so many decades.
You don't have enough people pressuring them to do it. And each one of us is not doing enough to turn out people to do it. And then those people need to turn out people to do it.
Howard, and virtually,
No questions. Statements.
Okay.
All the money.
New topic, which hopefully people might be here, about the alert status of the hospital. WTOP reported on less of a problem from what I can tell in the Montgomery County hospitals, but sometimes in the last few weeks, nearly every hospital in the Baltimore region has been on alert status.
Months.
alert.
Yellow and.
They can't accept people.
With ambulances.
As of 5 o'clock today, Howard County has been on yellow alert for 337 hours from September 28th. We've been on red alert for 103 hours since October 8th. So, and in previous weeks, they were in the hundreds. Beginning of September, they were on alert for 228 hours, yellow alert. And September 21st, they were on red alert for 145 hours. So the ambulances are going to Baltimore when they can.
Everybody's on alert.
And they're on alert, and apparently then going to Montgomery County. So what impact is this having on patients and the coverage? Because when I listen to the dispatch scanner, when the ambulances come back into the county, they go, we're back in the county. So they're spending a lot of their time out of the county, apparently all of them necessary. So I assume part of it's a staffing problem with the hospitals, but what impact is it having on our EMS budget and the fact that apparently all the ambulances are on the road instead of being in the county?
I don't know. I don't know what else. Those might be questions that you can ask the health department or you can ask the county executive. Because to be honest, they're gonna have more, they're gonna have the statistics and more knowledge about what's going on with the hospital right now
Budget problems.
than I will.
Budgeting.
And we'll see it in the budget, and we will certainly make those tough inquiries.
Our D1 office had the opportunity to meet with the new head of Cobb County General Hospital just in the last week or so, Dr. Ahmed, and we asked them that, right? Because I think that is, we get a lot of calls about people's worries about getting into their emergency room when they make that call, because we've heard the anecdotal stories about, I got in the ambulance, but I didn't end up at Howard County General, and you see those red alerts posted. And Dr. Ahmed assured us that it is almost exclusively at this point a staffing problem, right? So then it becomes a question of whether we use some of the COVID relief funding to create the incentive that allows Dr. Ahmed to make sure that he has the staff in that building to handle the volume of people that get in an ambulance and expect to be treated at Howard County General. But that's as good as an answer as I have.
I want you all to know that years ago, HCCA was extremely involved in this. On the yellow alerts, red alerts, and Angie Borders, Kevin Hudson. We went to the hospital, the former president, Victor Braccolino, and he met with us on 3 different sessions. It all started because he testified in front of the council that there's major problems at the hospital. And Courtney Watson said, wait a minute, I'm out. And in fact, she brought in Victor Braccolino to follow up on it. And then Braccolino had said 3 meetings with us. He did not appease us at all. We had 30-some odd questions. The good news was that this problem got corrected. So now, unfortunately, it's occurred again, and as Joel pointed out. And the problem is, obviously we got COVID, so maybe it's attributed to that. But the biggest problem is, and we tried our best in the APFO task force that we were on, Lisa Markowitz and myself in this room. And one of the things we tried was to have quality of life issues measured in APFO. And APFO in the area of police, fire, EMS, and the hospital. But unfortunately, when you had the majority, you had quite a number of developers in there, they said, you don't need that. And then we had, believe it or not, just so you know some history, we had Dr. Ball came up to me and said, we're going to try to do something about it. And I said, great. So he and Jen Terraza, County Council, they put in an amendment for to get measurements on the hospital. And unfortunately, it failed miserably, which is typical, but we keep on trying. Anyway.
Well, thanks for being here. One of the questions I have is, where are these decisions being made? We all know that the developers and others have a lot of influence, but when you look at something like HoCo By Design, supposedly there's public input, but it looks like it's just window dressing. I've been following this thing. I've seen that lots of comments have been made, a lot of public input, but it never shows up in the various iterations of the plan. It's very obvious that when they were hired, they were pretty much told what they wanted, an increase in density, and kind of let the developers play as they wish. So I know they're putting the money in, but who's making those decisions and then passing it down through the system, saying this is what you got to vote for?
Not me. I don't know who's that, but it's not me.
Yeah, it's not me either.
And I don't, because I'm not in the room, I don't know, I can guess.
Where's the room? That's what I'm looking at.
I mean, the department agencies heads work for the county executive. That's who you answer to.
Hello, my name is Harry Dunbar. I'm also known as Slow.
Who's talking? Let her finish.
I apologize. Forgive me.
It wasn't that interesting. I don't know. It's not there, right? So many things that are central to D1, to Old Ellicott City, to Elk Ridge. I am handed those decisions after they're done and baked in. This HoCo By Design, there was a process. It's set out in the code. These are the steps you have to take before the process could get underway. This council had to approve the process. We voted on the process first, and then they did it. And at each step along that way, twice now, is part of this. I know, I mean, I've been in the meetings. You've described the meetings to me, Deb. The only thing that we said, and I think all 5 of us said it, I thought we all meant it, but it was schools have to be centered in this planning exercise. Of course, this is why people move to this county. I mean, I see Paul shaking his head. Then we were like, you got to get schools people on this planning advisory committee, of course, because how else are you going to make decisions about how to improve schools if you don't have that expertise advising you? all along the way. They do these courtesy check-ins with us every once in a while where they show us the same slide they showed you guys. And at the end of it, I'm like, that's super great. When are you going to say school? Or you look at the surveys online, I'm like, this is super. I've now filled out 15 pages online and the word school has not yet appeared. I'm writing it in every single comment. At this point, they're like, this is Liz's comment. Because they know, because it's what I do on all their surveys, but they're not listening. You know, I made a crack about the council being more effective or powerful. I have not figured out how to exert our power to the extent we have it. It is executive level, going down to agency heads and signing documents and putting out into the public domain the answer with very little actual input from a broad array of people, including even other elected officials. And I can only guess who's in that room and who's making the decisions, but it's not me.
Yeah, I'm Harry Dunbar, also known as Slow Growth Dunbar. I've been living here in Howard County since 1973. I've raised a family here. I have a son in his 40s, living here now with his wife, and I have 2 grandchildren. And I'm a retired federal service personnel managers, working with the highest level of personnel management. Personnel leaders of the various agencies within the federal government. I ran for Howard County executive 4 years ago. I did not make it. I'm running again this time. I hope I make it this time. The key is you do not have progressives in government here in Howard County, and that's what you need. You don't need Republicans. No, the Republicans are not going to save you. You need a progressive Democrat. You need progressive Democrats on the county council, at least 3, so they can determine what's what. Our present county executive has 2 turkeys, districts 2 and district 3, plus the Republicans. And that's how. I'm answering this gentleman's question here. He asked about 5 minutes ago, sir. May I finish?
Very briefly.
I'm done.
We appreciate it.
I'd like to follow up with Jim, but also ask a question on what Liz had to say about her perfectly valid disappointment at the lack of emphasis from the schools in the HoCo By Design. I'm sorry.
Speak into the
Liz,
mic.
What was that?
Speak
Okay,
into the mic.
okay, the top part? I think it's not. Okay. Liz had very valid concern about lack of appropriate emphasis in the HoCo By Design on schools. But perhaps you know more about what's going into it, but I am very concerned, and I want to know whether you're going to be able to do anything about this, about the lack of concern about good land topology type management, stormwater management, things of that sort. And as you've all heard me say on every occasion I get a chance, in Dunlog, and every time they subdivide a lot, which they let people do, more and more of the neighbors get serious stormwater management. And this one family that I know that had to spend $60,000 even said it started after they let them take that lot and put 2 more houses on it. So I was appalled at a very late, one of the late public hearings on HoCo By Design, when just so happened 3 of us from Dunlogging got in and talked about stormwater management problems. And the consultant, Matt, who seemed like a nice guy, but totally clueless, not just about Howard County, but about Maryland, had clearly had no idea that there were flooding and stormwater problems outside of Old Ellicott City. Now, has anything of that been corrected? Can you expect it to be corrected? And if not, can you do something to make it corrected? Because I tell you, you know what? Even if you give the kids good schools, if their families can't can't afford to make their homes safe because of flooding and things of that sort, that's not too good for them either. So, it's a warning thing, it's a question, and and also something to urge you to see what can be done to assure that our general plan requires proper consideration of the environmental effects of the development.
Well, there was an environmental pack along with all the other packs, the school pack, the environmental pack, the housing pack. And I don't know, again, we just have been given the general broad feedback so far, and we have not been, we really have not been given anything more specific than that. I think stormwater management is a huge issue. It's probably, I think China would probably say it's one of the top 5 concerns of constituents and district. I know sometimes I think, Angie, you might think it's just Dunlop, but believe it or not, it's everywhere. And I mean, District 4, I constantly get complaints from people about stormwater issues in their yards. And it is a big issue here in Howard County because of how quickly it was developed and the lack of engineering knowledge at the time about stormwater and how to take water from one place to the other.
And the rains are increasing.
And the rains, and now we've got, the effect of climate change, which is making it even worse, Kathy. You're absolutely right. So, I mean, you've got 2 council members here who will obviously pay attention to that issue. Whether or not we'll be able to make headway, that's another question. And I know Liz said she feels badly when she asks you all to write in and do all these things. I don't. I want you to write in. I want you to come in and testify. I want you to do everything you can to be advocates during this general plan process. I hope that you get really active and you say what it is that you need to say to try and make a difference in this general plan process. And I think most of you know that Liz and I are very, I mean, we've said it tonight, we're very open, we're very appreciative of what you bring to us. And we know that so much of what you say is researched and is critical to going forward in this county. But that means you have to focus your efforts on one of the other 3 people. Okay, don't ever forget that. You have to focus your efforts on one of the other 3. So I just want to remind.
And how about the county executive as well?
Well, I think everybody in this room knows that the county executive has a very close relationship with 2 of the council members, and that I would assume that that the county executive has some influence over the way in which they ultimately may vote on certain issues. So that would say to me that not only do you want to focus your efforts on those other 3 council members, but you really want to focus your efforts on the county executive as well.
Andy, I do have a legislative fix for your issue, right? And that it came out, I mean, we've been kind of scrolling around it, but it came out very vividly to me in actually last budget session, work session, and that we have a whole category D in the capital budget that is exclusively county paid drainage issues. And right, so the subsidy is I allow this new development to come in, and 10 years later, I have this massive infrastructure drainage project. And Deb actually went before me in the questioning order, and so I followed up how that worked. Good job. Good job, Ruth. So you're gonna have to wrap this up. I'm gonna start just talking in other languages soon. But what happened was Mark DeLuca, the chief of the environmental services in the Department of Public Works, said out loud as Deb was showing him pictures of her communities where flooding is happening. And I'm talking about Hill Haven, where I actually have whitewater rapids in more than just, 100 or 500 or 1,000-year storms. And he said point blank what I had not heard anyone say out loud in a session recorded for everyone to go and look at it, which was that the way that we manage stormwater for at least the last 10 years is to address quality of water, and not quantity. So every time you hear, well, you don't have water flooding, Missy, because this plan complies with the, the current stormwater management regulations. Well, that doesn't mean anything with regard to flooding. It may mean that that development controls the first inch of rain that falls over some time period, and only on the parts that haven't been redeveloped. And that's not going to do anything to help your flooding problem, but it damn sure will make it worse. And so I always thought it was a state level issue, because there's always the issue that we at the county level can always do better than what the state minimums are. Good luck trying to do that. But I heard when Mr. DeLuca said that we can change our regulations. Why can't we do what we've done in Old Delegate City, which is have these heightened protections that actually address, if we have to do quality, then both quality and quantity. But to only address quality and to continue packing them in, particularly in the older neighborhoods whose existing infrastructure, is completely dysfunctional, that's asking for trouble. But I do think there's a legislative fix, either at the local level and the state one, where we have to get back into managing quantity of water in addition to the quality of the stormwater.
Well, let's say I'm in an R20 here, so I have a half acre lot, so I'm allowed to build a house. You have setback requirements. What about requirements for stormwater management? I'm sorry. As part of the, otherwise, if the stormwater management in the neighborhood is not adequate, then you can't build that house.
Well, we tried that in CP 38 because we walk those houses with the mushy front yard, or we see the pool of water that doesn't dry out for 2 weeks after the storm. And that it didn't get through as an individual element. But again, that's a legislative fix that you need 3 out of 5 council members to vote for.
We're going to have one more question, virtual, and then we're going to wrap it up.
All right, this question from the chat from Fran Lepresti. Where do you see independent senior housing going in the next 10 years as population ages in the county?
I know we're 1,440.
Oh, Liz.
No comment. Ex parte.
Yeah, I can
Right.
track, but I can't.
Right. I mean, independent living housing as in, well, first of all, hi, Fran. Thank you for watching us tonight virtually. And thank you for all your work on the East Columbia Senior Center. I personally, this is just, and I don't know legislatively how this will work, but I personally am a little unhappy that what we are seeing in Howard County over and over and over and over and over again are over 55 houses that cost somewhere between $550,000 and $1 million. And people just, and that's not the point. That is people my age. They don't want to downsize into a 3,000 square foot house that costs $750,000. That's just not even, I don't even know what we're thinking about when we say that. Now, here's the other hand, I guess, and that is you have developers who say, I'm going to make a lot more money if I can make 3,000 square foot homes that I can charge $750,000 for, and you can't fault somebody for saying, I don't think you can fault somebody for saying, here's my opportunity to make that money. So I think that we have to incentivize somehow, or I don't know what the answer is, but I do think we have to find a way to, and in this instance, who was it that said what's affordable was prevent? And I guess from this perspective, I would have to say affordable for a senior independent living might be a 1,500 square foot home that's in the 300s. That might be in Howard County something that's affordable and a realistic downsize, as opposed to what we're seeing right now. How do we get that? I haven't given enough thought yet to how we can get there. I think we can, but again, it's going to take leadership at the top, and it's going to take 3 votes on the county council. anything else to add.
There's
No, Liz likes that idea.
thank you. There's a gentleman here who claims that he has an important question, and he begged me for him to ask it. So being the nice guy that I am, is that right, Brian? I will allow him to ask the question.
Yes, thank you for making the exception, Stu, and sorry to keep everybody here longer, but I have a question / an announcement, something I want to promote that's very much on the topic of getting developer money out of politics, because I happen to agree with what Liz Bobo said earlier of it's a numbers game. You know, as long as we have only two unbought council members on the council, we're always going to get outvoted by the three, or most of the time get outvoted by the three. So I think we could try to do what we can with the minority while we have it until the 2022 elections. But I really think we need to gear up for these 2022 elections to not only protect the two of you that are currently on there, but to flip one of the other three seats that is currently in the pockets of the developers. That's all to say, one, Liz Walsh, I hope that you run again. I'm in your district. And two, a great tool that can be used to educate the public on these are the candidates that are in the pockets of the developers, and these are the candidates that are not in the pockets of developers is HCCA, Our Revolution, Howard County, Sunrise Movement, Howard County, the People's Voice, and Progressive Democrats of Howard County, the new organization that I'm the president of and Megan is vice president of. We partnered up on a no developer, no dark money donation pledge that we want Howard County candidates to sign. So both Deb and Liz, if you do end up running again, I hope both of you will consider signing on to this pledge. Same goes for you, Alan Kittleman. Same goes for Harry Dunbar, who's no longer here. So I will turn this into a question at the last second of, so where are you at with that, Liz, of the idea of
We're in the edge of our
You want to make some news?
My message is, and we all do it, and I definitely do it, because I definitely think there are moral issues out there, and I obviously feel very strongly about them. But if the opening line is, you're good guys, you're bad guys, we're not gonna solve problems, right? You're having this argument about something that's not the issue, right? So I do beg of you, you know, one of the reasons why I haven't made any announcement is because as hideous as the last 3 years have been and as disappointing as they have been, I know for a fact that the next year is going to be even worse. That there's going to be this nasty rhetoric. There's going to be someone waiting for someone to say something and then do something on, like, I just see a year worth of torture and pain ahead of me. And D1 office, get back to the issue. What is our issue? What are we trying to fix? What are we trying to do? Who can we get to help us do this? Like I totally support the Citizen Election Fund and its use. I totally support candidates signing up pledge because I want these decisions to be made for the right reasons, and I want them to be made out in the open. But we got to play nice with each other, and you can't. The name calling, I think, it just distracts from the bigger issues. And so I know it's hard. I'm very good at name calling, but it doesn't work, and it's not going to get us where I think we all want to be.
Ultimate step. I and the board sincerely means that. Honest with you. I said to Liz earlier, I said she used the phrase to be honest with you. I said, Liz, don't say that because from now on, if you don't say that, I said, lying to me. But she never lies, and that's the beautiful thing about her and Miss Young. And like I said, I am extremely proud of having Miss Young as my council representative and have Liz Walsh as her partner in, not in crime at all. But you two are in many ways beautiful inside and out. Thank you.
Thank you.